This is an electric charcoal starter. They're cheap and readily available. And this is a thick-walled 2 3/4 inch diameter aluminum pipe. I'm going to take the charcoal starter and I'm going to shove it down the end of this pipe and make a bending iron. So the first thing I need to do is mark a distance that I think is going to be about 6 inches longer than what the charcoal starter element will end up being once I squeeze it down to fit in this pipe. So we're just going to go with 15 inches and make a mark in several places around the outside diameter of this pipe. Then we're just going to take something straight I can wrap around it and connect all these dots to give me something square to aim for when I cut this. And I'll be cutting it by hand, and I'll be cutting with a cheap hacksaw, so it will probably won't be straight, but it doesn't matter. It won't be that far off, but just well shoot for square and take what I can get. It won't make any difference to the function of the iron. So I'm going to start off with a hacksaw and saw this thing apart. And we don't really need to watch me do the whole thing. Done. Then I'll take a double cut bastard file so I can remove some seriously fat amounts of metal. And I'll square that off, smooth that off, and get rid of the saw marks. And round the edge, just, get rid of the sharp edges, sharp corners, any kind of wire edge from cutting it, from sanding it, and filing it. And then I'll take some 60 grit sandpaper here and smooth the rest of the way out. I'm not looking for polish. I'm not looking for beautiful. Just nice and smooth with nothing, no edges to catch anything like that. And then what I did was take my sander and just sand it really good so that it's as smooth as I can get it. That doesn't have to be perfect either, but I want it nice and smooth and clean for bending. If I'm going to bend wood over it, I want it as smooth as I can get it. And now comes bending this, or squeezing this charcoal starter element in this vise just until I get it to fit the pipe. Now, I won't know until I test it, but there's an element, there's a filament or coil or something inside that element that could break if I'm not careful. It could crack. If it does, then it won't be any good. But I mean, this thing is not easy to squeeze in this vise. There's some spring back and stuff like that, so I just keep squeezing it and checking with the tape measure until I got a gap between the back and front of the vise that's 2 3/4 inch, and then squeeze it a little bit more to allow for spring back, and there we go. Now when I plug that into electricity, the element should heat up and it'll heat that pipe up. And so what I want to do now is I want to make kind of a baffle on the front end of this, and I'm going to use aluminum foil to do it. And the reason I want to do that is because I don't want a hole there. That pipe will be facing me, and if I leave just an open hole there, then the heat from that element is going to go all the way through that, and I could burn myself. So I want to make sure there's a baffle or something there to stop that from happening. So I stuffed quite a bit of aluminum foil in here because I really don't want it to move any. And I smacked my wrist on the edge of that pipe, slamming that in there with that rod. Did not feel good. And there you go. Now to shove the element back in. Success. And so now I have to build a frame of some kind to hold the pipe in so that I can put it in a vise and not burn my bench up or anything like that. I've got to have something to hold it. So I just took, I think these are 2x4s, but they might be 2x6. I believe they're 2x4s. I didn't really check. I just grabbed it because it looked about right. Yeah, and it's a 2x4. It's the same thing I made the benches out of. And I'll just take this coping saw and cut out the shape of half of that pipe that I've drawn on each of the 2x4s, so that both of them will fit around the pipe. You can hear the birds singing really well in the video recording, but I do overdubs and adjust the volume so that you can hear the narration. Sometimes I lose that quality of the of nature that I really love, and I sure wish that there was some way I could find a balance between the two that's acceptable. But when people insist on listening to audio through tiny little cell phone speakers, there's not really a lot I can do. But I'm really enjoying myself. It's a beautiful day. The birds are singing. The sun's out. There's a breeze going. Just a really nice day. And once I get them cut out, I'm going to take a nice sharp chisel and just enlarge them a bit. I cut them smaller and just enlarge them a bit so that I get a good solid tight fit around that pipe. And there's nothing pretty much that I can think of except maybe a hand plane that's as nice as a wonderfully sharp chisel. And these are those Aldi's chisels. All the woodworking forums tell you are junk, and everybody is, you know, making a big deal. Oh, they can't possibly be any good. I use them all the time. Yeah, I altered the handles to fit what I wanted it to look like and feel like, and put a nice finish on it. But they're the Aldi's chisels, and they work really well. I don't have a lick of trouble out of them. And, you know, if you're trying to start woodworking and you don't have a lot of money, you could do a lot worse than these chisels. But anyway, that's part one. Part two, I'll wire up a dimmer switch and finish up this frame and locate the position of the dimmer switch on the unit and all of that, and we'll be ready to practice bending some guitar sides. Thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you find this useful. If you're trying to build a guitar, I'm hoping to try to show you a way to do it as budget conscious as I can and still do quality work. So thank you, God bless you, and I will talk to you later. I'm just going to let the video play out, cleaning up.